Well, many years ago, in fact, almost 30 years ago, I pastored a church in Cleburne for a short time, and while I was there was an older member. I just called him Brother Williams. He was a man that he kind of took me under his wing a little bit, helped me get to know the people, and helped me do visits and things. And anyway, one night I was in the church foyer. I guess it was a Wednesday night, and it was in the summer. And we're getting ready for service, and of course I had the lights on and everything ready. And he was one of the first to arrive, and he walked into the church foyer, and he saw that the lights were on, and it was still light outside in the summer. And he said, "Brother Hill, don't you think we could turn these off and save that nickel?" Now I got to tell you, I'm not quite that tight. I've been accused of being tight, but I'm not quite that tight. It kind of reminds me of my grandmother. When my kids were little, every vacation that we did pretty much, there might have been one or two exceptions, but pretty much anytime we got a couple of days away, we went to grandmother's. That was just where we loved to go and rest and just get away. But everything always seemed better at grandmother's. I mean, the food was always great. The rest was better. Everything was just better. Even the coffee was better. I mean, she just used regular old Maxwell House coffee, but somehow it was better. Well, then sometime later, we lived with her for about 10 weeks, and we learned that she reused her coffee filters. So we found her secret to having the best coffee. But I know some of you probably have some stories you could tell about somebody that didn't like to waste in your life. And you know what? I don't like waste. The reason that I don't like waste is because I always think about what that could have been used for. And maybe Brother Williams was thinking about sending those nickels to the mission field. I don't know. But waste in our life can be something much more valuable than money. We can waste our life. And when you consider how valuable you are to God, 1 Peter 1:18 and 19 tells us that we were not redeemed with silver or gold. See, that's money. But with the precious blood of Christ. That's how valuable you are to God. You need to realize how valuable your life is, and don't waste it. Most people don't give much thought to that. But each and every day, we have a choice whether or not we waste our life or we live it to the fullness in all that God has for us. Too many end up with a life of regret. And you know what the problem with regret is? The regret comes later, after the fact. We need to realize that we can't waste our life, that day by day it's important how we use our life, how we live our life, how we spend it. We need to be intentional about it. Because life is not like a light bulb. There's no light switch. You can't just flip it off and, put it on pause for a while. No, life just keeps passing us by day, hour by hour. It's going to go. So are we going to waste it? Or are we going to use it to its fullness? I know a lot of people feel like 2020 has just been a wasted year. Like their life is kind of on hold until things get back to normal. And I understand the frustration. I hear where you're coming from. But you need to hear this morning, that even in the midst of all of the difficulties and all of the challenges and all of the changes that we're in the midst of right now, there are opportunities to live life. In fact, there are some new opportunities and greater opportunities, especially when you're talking about some of the things that are most important, like relationships with family and close friends, and even our relationship with the Lord. It's amazing how maybe we find ourselves with more time for those things, and how wonderful that is, whether we realize it or not. But here's the bigger thing. Don't waste this year. It doesn't have to be a waste. We just need to focus on the things that are most important. It's been said that life is God's gift to you, and what you do with it is your gift to God. So make the most of it. How do we keep from wasting our life? I'm going to give you three simple things this morning. The first one is do it now. Whatever you're going to do, you need to do it now. Now, let me just clarify. I'm not talking about making rash decisions. I'm not talking about being foolish and just rushing forward with things. I'm talking about the things that you know that you are supposed to do, the things that you know you need to do, the things you know you should do. Quit putting them off and do it now. Don't delay. Don't waste any more time. See, we live with this attitude of someday. It's the someday syndrome. You know, for teenagers and young people, it's someday when I get out of the house. And then it's someday when I get married. And someday when I have kids. And then it turns into someday when, the kids are out of the house. Or someday when I get caught up. Anybody ever had that come across your mind, Well, when I finally get caught up, I'm going to, someday, I'm going to get in shape. Oh my, someday. Hey, I can preach this good because I know all about it. Someday I'm going to lose that weight. Someday I'm going to get back into, Someday I'm going to start saving. Do it now. Oh, I can't do it now. Someday, when I get more money, someday I'm going to get involved in the work of the Lord. Someday, when I retire, someday I'm going to start living in the now. Because someday is not a day of the week. It never comes. You got to decide that the things that are important, the things that you need to do, the things you know you should do, you're just going to do them now. Don't procrastinate. I like to say swallow the frog. This is a principle Carmen and I learned about 30 years ago. I don't always live by it. I need to. But in life, there are always difficult things. There are always unpleasant things. And whatever you're going to do, whatever endeavor in life, there's going to be something along the way that you don't want to have to deal with. A phone call you got to make, somebody you got to go talk to, an issue you got to work out. Whatever it is, you don't want to do it. That's the frog. Swallow the frog. Get it over with so that you can move on with what God wants you to do. Just do it now. See, we need a little bit of that Larry the Cable Guy attitude. How's that go? Get her done. Just go ahead and get it over with. Get it done. Quit fooling around. Don't let life just pass you by. Quit wasting life. Do it now. Because tomorrow is not promised to you. James 4:14 says, "You do not know what will happen tomorrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away." In the view of eternity, our time here is so short. And so often, that's what we say when someone passes away. It was just too short. We need to realize tomorrow is not a guarantee. We need to be doing the things that we know we're supposed to do, getting it done. Don't waste it. And that takes us to the next one is don't waste time. Benjamin Franklin said, "Do not squander time, for it is the stuff that life is made of." And understand this, yes, eternal life is much more than just time. But when we're talking about life here on earth, it is absolutely made up of time. And how we spend our time on earth is how we spend our life. We ought to consider our time to be our most valuable commodity. Much more valuable than money. Psalm 90:12 says, "Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." You see, if we just realize that truly our days are limited, if you were going to count them down, if you knew how much time you had, then oh, how much easier it becomes for us to be wise about how we spend it. Number our days. Teach us to number our days. A.W. Tozer wrote, "Time is a resource that is non-renewable, non-transferable. You cannot store it, slow it up, hold it up, divide it up, or give it up. You can't hoard it up or save it up for a rainy day. When it's lost, it's unrecoverable. When you kill time, remember that it has no resurrection." How much time we waste. And all of these time-saving devices that we have, and I thank God for technology that many are watching online this morning and able to worship with us that way. And yet at the same time, I believe the enemy of our soul has orchestrated one of the greatest thefts of human history. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And he is stealing away people's time. He's stealing away part of their life through technology, because so many people spend so much time looking at a screen. They say that most people today spend at least 4 to 7 hours either looking at a TV, a computer, a tablet, or a phone. That's amazing to me, especially when you look at things this way. Talk about numbering your days. Sometimes we just need to do a little math, and I've done this before, but I really feel like I need to do it again this morning. And so just want to put this out before you. If you spent 2 hours a day on those activities combined, 2 hours a day, that's considered to be pretty, conservative. Then at the end of the year, you would have spent 1 month, think about that, 1 month of that year doing those activities. That's 24-hour days, a full month of your life doing those activities. And if you're just talking about 8-hour days, a lot of people work 8 hours a day. If you're just talking about 8-hour days, you would be talking about 3 months of 8-hour days. How did that happen? 2 hours a day. But in the course of a year, it's 3 months. And if you're a little bit more on the normal side, the average side, and you spend 4 hours a day looking at a computer, a phone, a tablet, or a TV, then you would have spent 6 months of 8-hour days. And we want to talk about coronavirus wasting a year. I'm telling you, this is a way that we can waste a lot of years. Y'all are really quiet right now. I know some of you are doing math. And some of you are wishing the preacher would move on because I'm all in your business right now. But this is where we live, and I'm talking about people not wasting their lives this morning. Amen. Thank you, brother. I'll move on now. That one amen will get me to move on. Praise the Lord. But I'm telling you, just as life is a gift from God, your time is a gift from God, and we just need to make up our mind we're not going to waste either. When you look at the life of Jesus, he never seemed to be in a hurry. It was like he had all the time in the world, but we know that he didn't. In fact, his ministry was only 3.5 years. And yet he never seemed to be in a hurry. He never ran, not that we know of. He had time to pray. He had time to consider the flowers of the field and the birds of the air, and he had time to take up little children in his arms and bless them. He had time to accomplish all of the things that the Father had for him to do in that 3 years. In that 3 years, he accomplished more than the rest of mankind in all of history. Think about this. What if you only had 3 years? 3 years from today, that would be numbering your days. How would you use it then? You see, sometimes we need to think about things that way just to put things in perspective. What's really important? How am I wasting time? I mean, when someone has a terminal illness, a lot of times that's what happens to them is they realize, I don't want to waste any more time. I want to focus on the things that are most important. And usually what that means is they focus on their relationship with God. They focus on their family. They focus on their friends. They focus on, listen, if you know that the time is short, one of the things that you want to do is anybody you want to talk to about the Lord, you want to talk to them about the Lord. It's not someday. It becomes, I need to do this now. And I'm just telling you that we need to come to that place where we're not wasting time, because if you're wasting time, you're wasting part of your life. And I will clarify, we all need rest. The Bible makes it clear that we're to have a day of rest. And I understand that we all need some time to rest. We need some time for relaxation and even recreation, but how it turns into, sometimes it turns into something that's just stealing our time, our life. And in fact, a lot of those activities, it's been proven that in the end, they don't really relax us, especially when they're taken to an extreme. A lot of that technology just adds to our stress level instead of truly relaxing us. And I just want to encourage you, now it's not just about technology. There are a lot of things that can steal away your time. But I want to encourage you, make the most of your time. Make it count. And it seems like when we get busy, a lot of the time, our relationships suffer. When we get busy, it seems like we just don't have time for people. And I would remind you that in Jesus' time, people were the only thing that really mattered. And we need to remember that that's what is important to God, and it should always be important to us. Anybody ever been so busy you just didn't feel like you had time to be kind, especially to a stranger? Like the woman sitting at a traffic light and her car stalls, and she's sitting there trying to get it to start. She doesn't know what else to do. She just keeps turning the key. And the guy behind her, the light turns green. He's just laying on the horn. Anybody been that guy? Laying on the horn. Go, go! And she finally has enough of it. She gets up out of her car and comes back and taps on his window. He rolls the window down and she says, "Sir, I've done everything I know to do to get my car to start. Maybe you could come try to start my car and I'll sit back here and blow the horn." Oh, we're so busy. We got somewhere we got to be. Get out of my way. Well, Jesus never had to drive a car. No, he walked everywhere he went, and you're welcome to go for that. But anyway, I'm just telling you, we get so busy, we just don't even have time for people. Satan is stealing away our time, stealing away our life when that happens. No, instead, we need to be available to God. That anytime he has an assignment for us, anytime he has an opportunity for us. See, how much of life is just passing us by because we're so busy. You see, when I'm talking about don't waste time, I'm not talking about busying yourself up. I'm talking about figuring out the things that you need to say no to so that you have time for the things that you're really supposed to do. So you have time for God and the things of God and being used of God. You got to have some margin in your life so that if God says, I want you to do this. You know, a lot of people say, oh, well, I just don't really hear God's voice much. You know what? It's amazing how you hear God's voice when you be still and know that He's God. When you just slow down long enough to listen. But when we're always just barreling through our day, we miss it. And by the way, nobody ever said on their deathbed, I wish I'd spent more time at work. But oh, how they realized how valuable, how important those relationships were. Billy Graham said, time is the capital that God has given us to invest. People are the stocks in which we are to invest our time, whether they're blue chips, penny stocks, or even junk bonds. People, that's what's really important. That's where we should be investing our time. But all of us know this, when you have little ones, how fast time flies. Just turn around one time and they're grown. You grandparents know it too. Oh, they grow up so fast. I'm just saying we got to make the most of every opportunity of our time and don't waste it, because when you waste it, you're wasting your life. This last point is the most important. If we miss this one, the others really don't matter. To keep from wasting your life, you just have to give it to Jesus. I'm going to read a story from Mark chapter 14, beginning from verse 3. It says, and being in Bethany at the house of Simon the leper, as he sat at the table, a woman came having an alabaster flask of very costly oil of spikenard. Then she broke the flask and poured it on his head. But there were some who were indignant among themselves and said, why was this fragrant oil wasted? For it might have been sold for more than 300 denarii and given to the poor. And they criticized her sharply. But Jesus said, let her alone. Why do you trouble her? She has done a good work for me. For you have the poor with you always, and whenever you wish, you may do them good. But me you do not have always. She has done what she could. She has come beforehand to anoint my body for burial. Assuredly, I say to you, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what this woman has done will also be told as a memorial to her. Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went out to the chief priest to betray him to them. You see, it was at this very time that Judas decided to go ahead and betray the Lord. The Gospel of John sheds a little light on this story. It tells us that it was Judas who was the one who spoke up and said, why this waste? But he wasn't really concerned about the poor, but it says that it was because he was a thief and he wanted it for himself. And you know, there's a lot of people that just want to live life for themselves. Said this about Mary, she did what she could for the Lord. But think about this. What Mary did is she brought this fragrant oil worth 300 denarii. Now that may not mean a whole lot to us, but just to put it into everyday terminology we can understand, a denarii was a common man's day's wages, and 300 days would be about 1 year of work. And so just consider it, take it personally this morning. For you, what would it be like to bring a year's work, what you earned for a year? Now, you know, when you talk about money, and especially when you earned it, it's kind of a piece of your life. I mean, it took time and effort and energy, work, to make that money. And here she brings what was worth a year's wages and just pours it out on the Lord. And of course, there was Judas Iscariot, but it doesn't even just say him. In Mark, it said there were some. There was more than just him who were indignant, and they said, oh, this waste. And I want to tell you, that spirit, that attitude is still alive and well. Not only when people give to the Lord, there are people who think it's a waste, but when people give of their time and energy and effort, when people get involved in the work of the Lord, it's amazing how there will be somebody standing by, and not just the world, but even other Christians who will say, oh, that's just not necessary. I mean, we all love Jesus, and oh, it's good, to give, or it's good to do something for Jesus. Fine, you want to go to church some, but you don't have to be fanatical about it. No. Now, if you've said those things to your loved one, your kid, please forgive me. I'm not talking about you personally. Your loved one didn't tell me, so don't go accusing them. I've heard these stories too many times. Family saves money so their child can go to school. They keep putting back and putting back and putting back. And one day he says, I want to go to Bible college. And they say, no, that's not why we work so hard and save this money so you could just waste it going to some podunk Bible college. We save this so that you could become somebody, so that you could make money, so you could be successful. I've actually gotten a letter from a missionary before that told me about how that he and his wife had these degrees, and people in the States told them, if you would just use your degrees and your ability, you could make a lot of money, you could be successful. But they thought it was such a waste that they were serving on the mission field. That attitude that if you give it to Jesus, it's a waste. But I tell you this morning that if you don't give it to Jesus in eternity, it was a waste. We all know about waste. Wasted lives. Carload of teenagers that just graduated, go out to celebrate, and they're driving too fast. They don't make a turn. And some of them die in a car wreck, and we say, what a terrible waste. They had their whole future ahead of them. What a waste. And it is. Life is too precious to waste. But you see, life gets wasted in all kinds of ways. A young man that's married and has children, and he thinks that he needs to relax a little, so he stops to get a drink, and before long, he stops to get a couple of drinks and a little more, and eventually he starts missing work, and he goes home angry and mistreats his wife and kids, and the end result is that he loses his job, and he loses his family, he loses everything that meant anything to him. That's a waste. By the way, maybe that's why they call it wasted when you drink too much. They're wasting their life. That's a waste. But I want to tell you what else is a waste. Listen, I'm going to give the blame for this one to John Piper in his book, Don't Waste Your Life. He says, I'll tell you what a tragedy is. I'll show you how to waste your life. He says, a couple took early retirement from their jobs in the Northeast 5 years ago when he was 59 and she was 51. Now they live in Punta Gorda, Florida, where they cruise on their 30-foot trawler. They play softball and collect shells. He says, picture them before Christ, at the judgment seat of Christ, as they say, Lord, look at my shells. That's a waste. I said I gave John Piper the credit for that because I want to give him the blame for that too. I know how some of you are looking at me right now. But here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with having a collection. There's nothing wrong with you enjoying life and being able to relax some. But the truth is that in eternity, if we don't give our lives to Jesus, it's all a waste. And here's the thing. It has been shown over and over and over again. This is not a new thing. This is not something that we don't know about. Philip Yancey, a journalist who had a lot of opportunities to interview famous people in sports and entertainment, he said that most often they were unhappy, unfulfilled people. And we've seen this again and again in our time, that when the truth really comes out, I mean, when they died from too much antidepressants and sleeping pills and everything, listen, when the truth comes out, we see that this life that so many think they want, it's empty. And Philip Yancey said that, on the other hand, there were doctors who gave their time to go to foreign countries where they wouldn't be paid. There were people that were willing to serve, people that gave of themselves. He said that those people were the ones that seemed to find real fulfillment in life and really made a difference. You see, Jesus says in Luke 9:24, whoever wants to save his life will lose it. You know how you waste your life? You just live it for self. But whoever loses his life for me will save it. He's not talking about losing your life in the sense of being a martyr. He's talking about losing your life in the sense of living it for Him every day. Because when we do that, we don't lose it, we don't waste it. No, that's the way that you use it in a way that's meaningful for eternity, that makes a difference in eternity, that really matters. The Bible tells us in Romans 12:1 to present your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship, your life. Mary poured out this costly perfume, and Jesus said she has done what she could. I want to tell you this morning that Jesus is worthy of our very lives. And if you're not going to waste your life, I'm going to tell you, you got to give it to Jesus, and He's worthy of you just pouring it out to Him and laying it all at His feet. Because the truth is it belongs to Him anyway. 1 Corinthians 6:19 and 20 says, you are not your own. The world says, I'm my own man, it's my life, and I'll do what I want. But if you're a believer, if you're a child of God, you can never say that. Because you don't belong to yourself anymore. He says you were bought at a price. Therefore, glorify God in your body and in your spirit. I want to tell you, anything that you give to God, anything that you do for God, when you give your life to Him, when you live for Him, you are never wasting your life. Anything that's done for His glory, it is never a waste. So I challenge you this morning, make up your mind to quit putting things off. The things that you know you need to do, you're supposed to do, just do it. Do it now. Stop wasting time. Say no to the time wasters, the things in your life that are fruitless activity. And most importantly, give it to God. Live your life every day on the altar. Leave it in His hands. Stand with me, we're going to pray.